In this video, we're looking at another fault where the car doesn't crank and it also doesn't make any sound when you turn the key to the start position. In this case, we can't eliminate any of the four circuits on this schematic because when we turn the key, we don't hear anything. If you wanted to test the starter itself, just to get that part out of the way, you could pull this relay out of the fuse box, which is in an easy access area, and you could use the jumper wire method that we did when we were testing in the last video and bypass this switch, and that would activate the starter solenoid pull-in and hold-in coils, and if the starter was working, then the car would crank. And by doing this test, we would eliminate this relay switched circuit and we would eliminate the starter circuit just by doing one quick test. And different people will start in different locations. Someone else may say, well, I didn't hear anything. I know my problem will more than likely be in perhaps the information circuit or in the relay coil circuit. So they may just want to test there, and somebody else may want to just eliminate the possibility of the starter and the relay switch circuit and just get them out of the way, because even if you're diagnosing the information circuit, you still need to know, let's say you found something wrong with the ignition switch, you would still need to make sure or verify that the rest of the starter schematic is operational in case there were multiple faults. If I wanted to test the information circuit, I would just look for any easy to access location along this path. And the easiest place would be to test the fuse, but you would know the fuse is good if you used the jumper wire earlier to get the starter to crank, because it's the same fuse that's powering up the information circuit. So if I made a voltage test at this location, I would expect to measure 12 volts before I turn the key to the start position, but I would prefer to do a test on this side of the circuit because this is the side that is doing the action. It's the side that would measure 0 volts before you turn the key to the start position, and then it switches to 12 volts once you do turn the key to the start position. So I prefer to do my test there because that test confirms the rest of the circuit anyway. And if I can find a location to make my test on the part of the circuit that the voltage changes, then if I don't get the reading I'm looking for, I work my way backwards. And if I do get the reading I'm looking for, then I know that whole beginning part of the circuit had to work. So I am expecting to get 12 volts at this location, and this location, and this location, and this location, and even this location. So where I choose to make the measurement would be where is the easiest accessible location, or the easiest place to access. And if I do wind up where I've confirmed that there's 12 volts all the way down to the powertrain control module, the next step would be to test the relay coil circuit. And that's this circuit over here, going through the relay coil and then being grounded by the powertrain control module. So for me, the easy access place would be the fuse box under the hood. So if I had to make a test, I would look for this relay location and see if I'm getting 12 volts here when the car is in park or neutral. So if I have my car in park and I connect my meter from this point to ground and I get 12 volts, then that would mean that the park neutral switch is doing its job and allowing the 12 volts to get to this point. But in this case, in this example, we did not get 12 volts when we were doing this test. So that would tell me that I have to work my way back this way to find out where I'm losing the 12 volts. Now, another first step could have been to just measure the voltage at the fuse, make sure there's 12 volts on this side of the fuse and on this side of the fuse. And there's never anything wrong with checking the fuse, but if I'm over here and I make my first test here, if I get the reading I want, then I've already tested the fuse and the park neutral switch, and I'm up to this point already. And you can work your way one step at a time through the circuit, but overall, it will take longer or more steps to get your answer. So while there's nothing wrong with just testing the fuse, it's up to the individual to make a test that maybe saves some time. And for me, if the relay is right next to the fuse or in a very easy to access location, I might just make the test at the relay. So in this case study, when we worked our way back and made a test at the park neutral switch itself, if I went with my meter from here to ground, and on this example, I did not have 12 volts when the car was in park or neutral. And then when I came up above this, I did have 12 volts. So the fault here is that the park neutral switch, even though the car was in park or neutral, it was not completing this path, which was never allowing power to get to the relay coil. And because of that, the starter relay never engaged. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit about how a scan tool can help you with your diagnosis on a starting system schematic.